That was a good question that one of my, can't say long time, but someone who I've known for some very good years on and off asked me a question, a brethren. So this is for the I and I, brother, about the Bible and the so-called slave master. Basically, here's what my brethren asked me. Pilar, Patrick, this is for you, right? I'm gonna have to just, I say, blow you up like that, but hopefully you get to check this out. This is part of my answer, because he asked me this question before we had, got off the phone this morning, called I, rather early in the morning, didn't really recognize the number, picked it up, and, sometimes, when we call people sometimes as brethren, we don't really, we might not really say our name. I think the sisters probably will say who they are. Like, this is something, you don't remember me? Like she'll say that. Even before you don't forget her, she'll say that. But brothers sometimes will call, what's up, my brother? And yes, and you'd be like, okay, you know the voice, but it's probably been a while. But I was able to immediately recognize, my brother, and, like his voice just was unique. So anyway, we talk about a couple of things. Various things, even the Ethiopian World Federation, Shashamani, that was interesting because we had made moves together during the time of when Dr. Gladstone Robinson was amongst us, the power of attorney of the Ethiopian World Federation. May God bless his soul. So we talked about a few things, and then we came to the end of it. He was running a little bit late for what he had to do in the morning, some works he had to do. So he said, let me leave you with this. And I'm going to try to paraphrase. He said, let me leave you with this. And he said, this might hurt. This might hurt. I was like, okay. And I'm like, okay, just hit me with it. Come on. Instead of like, say, oh, you're going to ask me something about this or about that. No, just ask what you're going to ask. And he said, okay. He said, what I recall him saying, he said, after, he said, okay, let's say you are the slave master, or really, as our ancestors said it rightly, according to the Hebrew, Masa means the oppressor. Masa, what's up, Masa? Masa in the Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, means oppressor. I RasTafari say down presser. Anyway, the down presser man, right? Because he presses us down. He doesn't up press us. He down press. Word, sound, power. But he said, okay, say you are the, slave masa. And I said, okay. I put myself in that perspective, that point of view, right? And after everything that I, as a slave masa, like, and the masa, speaking of, the so-called pale man, so-called white man, the pale man, so-called white man, especially the Anglo-Americans have done, we know all of that, not to regurgitate all that. If you want to look at that, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 15 to 68, for we as the lost found, basically helps us immensely with our identity. But after all of that, would you, he didn't say that part, I just insert that there for you all, right, to let you know my perspective as well, and hopefully the brother check this out. This is part of my answer to that. Basic question is, after everything that the slave master has done, right, to so-called black people, would he ever give the black man, who he has down pressed as a slave master, would he ever give the black man a Bible with a real God in it? A Bible for real God in it. And I heard the question, and I was like, wow, I thought it was a very good question. I didn't feel any hurt or pain. Actually, I felt a lot of joy because, the discussion is, among some, is the Bible, right? The Bible, the best solution, or the best book, or this offer is the book of the best solutions, a solution for us as black people. That's a companion, that's a corollary kind of a question there, right? So I didn't get into my answer to him on that. I first took it in. As someone who is a proponent of the Bible or the scriptures properly overstood, a proper overstanding of the scripture. As the Bible even says, I think of itself, it says to give praise with understanding, to give praise with overstanding, in order to give praise to God with understanding. Now, if you don't know who God is, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're at, you're stuck in the matrix, well, it might not be so, all right? Because the Bible is like fire, all right? On one hand, the Bible is like fire. Is fire good or bad? Ask yourself right now. Ask yourself, is fire good or bad? I mean, the true answer or the balanced answer is that it is. It's neither good or bad in and of itself. It is. You know what I mean? Actually, I would say fire is probably very good, but it has a good and a bad application. People can use it for good purposes, or people can use it for evil purposes. And if you've been burnt by fire, well, the initial reaction probably is one of aversion. So I understand where some people are not really into the Bible, right? As some of us who might say that, yes, the Bible as a book, as a teaching, as a study, properly studied, not from a religious perspective, but from a scientific perspective. And I'll just put it into a little language, like the Jews. Now everybody talk about the Jews, right? But isn't it kind of interesting that the Gentiles believe in the Savior who the Bible says was a Jew, and the Jews who say they are Jews, I mean, those who really study the Bible, they have found and mined a wealth of universal knowledge and wisdom from the same Bible. You see, so if I wanted to learn about the Bible, I would prefer to go to a yeshiva, right, where they was teaching certain things concerning Torah, than to go to the average church, where it's just hoopling and hollering and kind of nonsense. Most of the churches are that way. Not speaking about all churches, but the Negro, so-called Negro church. So the question of whether the pale man, the so-called white man, would give the black man a Bible if the Bible contained a real God. In other words, what I think he means is like the knowledge of a real God in the Bible. Not that the God is actually in the Bible, but the knowledge of a real God in the Bible. And at first I didn't think of it. I just listened to this question and I mused on it for a moment. And, I just communed with the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Truth, the Ila Irit, and then the overstanding came. You know what the overstanding was? The white man did not give the black man a Bible. You see, a lot of people don't even recognize that the white man, the so-called white man, he's not really a white man in that sense, but, that's a part of the matrix paradigm, Job 2 and 4, skin for skin, part of the devil's COINTELPRO on humanity. But be that as it may, the so-called pale man, right, did not give the black man a Bible. In fact, and you can go to this is archived, this is documented, this can be substantiated, that the so-called slave massa, right, or the enslaving massa, right, he did not want black people, right, especially the black man, but he did not want the black man to read the Bible. He didn't want him to read, period, but he definitely didn't want him to read the Bible. We're talking about how it began, how it started off, because then people say, well, how come, what's going on today? But they don't know how it began. You see, we have to get to the beginning. How did it begin? How did the relationship begin? Not that it was a consensual relationship, because the Hebrews, or the so-called blacks, or people say Negroes, or the enslaved so-called Africans, they didn't consent to this. You know what I mean? So it was not a consensual so-called relationship. But it's very clear from the inception of what we know as the Middle Passage, transatlantic slave trade, however it's characterized or classified, that the so-called white man did not, right, want the black man or the slaves to have a knowledge of the Bible. And he even made that so clearly known by the killing of some people, some black people, even the killing of some white people. Some white people were killed for teaching black people how to read, and the main book of reading was the Bible. In fact, the whole educational system of America was, when they came over here, speaking about the so-called Pilgrim and the European invaders, the Canaanites, the Anglo-Americans, whatever you want to call them, the people with the spirit of Esau, when they came over here to this particular land, they instituted an educational system, right? You know, they wanted everybody to know how to read. And the educational system was all based on everyone having, in certain of the major settlements, having a knowledge of the Bible. So the white man for himself, the so-called Anglo-American, the European that came over here, the first pilgrims and settlers in many of the communities, not all, but many of the original first communities, the founding so-called father communities, so to speak, that they wanted themselves to have a knowledge of reading, and the book or the manual of instruction was the Bible. However, when we move further down to the South, because we have to remember that all crackers are not really the same cracker, because just as he played to divide and conquer, if we were really wise to salvation, we'll recognize that there are differences. And he even recognized these differences amongst them. See, he uses those differences amongst us to keep us in an off-balance state. But we'll say all crackers, all white people are the same white people. But no, they're not. The whole history, his story basically tells us concerning himself that that's not so. But there were other white men or Europeans down in the South, the so-called plantation states. There was slavery in the North, but mainly down in the South, right? Coming from the Caribbean, especially in the Caribbean. You know what I mean? That did not want, because that's where it all began. They first shipped over the enslaved Hebrews, right? The so-called Africans, right? The Ethiopian Hebrews. They first shipped them over to the Caribbean islands. Right, that was a place where they sorted them out, and they broke ones in, and then they would sell them and, you know, ship them up to America, the southern plantation for cotton and all that economics, because that was a part of the European economic system. That was part of the so-called colonialist economic system that they basically had inherited from their European, Anglo, and British forefathers. Because remember, a lot of them came over here as basically compared to the people that still was in England as trash, as white trash, and they knew it. But when they came to this new land, they recognized the freedom and the opportunities, and they recognized the first place they had to start out with is the Bible, and they had to whitewash everyone in the Bible in order for it to be digestible for them. See, this is what a lot of us don't recognize, that the Bible is not a European book in its origin. Only in the latter day times of the Gentiles, which is the time period that we are in, or the dispensation that we are in. So this is a part of my more expanded, not so much an answer, and it has answers in it, but we're not saying that this is, this is the definitive answer to that question. Why would the slave master, massa, right, give the black man a Bible with a Bible, speaking about the Bible, which is many books really, biblios and all of that, right? Why would he give him a book if there was a real God in it? Well, first of all, that question has a faulty premise. Right? And it's not, it's not against my brother, and I didn't get a chance because he had to get off to work and everything. He's running late already, so I didn't want to even get started. But after I just finished speaking with him, I said, I'll just record this vid, because I said, I might post something up there and I'll let him know. And this I might actually post up and share with the rest of y'all and have y'all look at this question. Because those of us who have found that treasure, that buried treasure, and recognize that alchemical quality with the alchemy changing baser things into better things. Like the white man, the European, the pale man has whitewashed the Bible. But through the process of study, knowledge, and education, we recognize, well, these characters in the Bible were not originally, right, white people, or they're not white people, but they were not even seen as white people. It's only in this state that we have fallen to, in this kind of fallen state in the West, because the curses for disobedience, because we are the Ethiopian Hebrews, or the Ethiopian Hebrew Israelite, black Hebrew Israelites. We say Ethiopian, others just say black, but that's another discussion and a reasoning and maybe even a debate, but we're not prone to debate so much. We have the evidence that basically prove it. Amos 9:7, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? Now, some will say that's only because they're black. I say you cannot speak fully for, for truth. You see it in a black application of racial similarity between the Ethiopians and Israelites, and that's what we needed to see at first. But the truth is stranger than fiction. There's much more right there. But the question has a faulty premise. It has the premise, the question of whether the white man or the slave master would give the black man who was enslaved a Bible if there was a real God in it. The faulty premise is that slave master did not give the black man a Bible. In fact, he did not want the black man to be given he did not want the black man to be taught to read. And he definitely, and this is clear, this is documented, this is substantiated, there's evidence, not just us. We've actually come across other people's research that in, like the Godwin research, which is very interesting, because when they finally did have certain, when he couldn't stop black people from gravitating to it, he figured, well, if you can't beat them, then join them, right? So when he recognized that black people are going to do this Bible, or once they got a knowledge of what's in there and was singing songs like Go Down Moses and the Lion of Judah, in the plantations and in the fields and everything. And so he couldn't stop it like that. So like you can't stop the river, but what he could do was build a dam. He could build a dam so he could control the water. And this is where he sent his prepackaged, the first of the hired shepherds, the idol shepherds, the first of the fake ass pastors and preachers. Right? Not all of the pastors, black pastors and preachers were fake. I just want to say this for the record. So let's not, just generalize. But this is where the slave master recognized that once the proverbial cat, Lion of the tribe of Judah, once the cat was out of the proverbial bag and he couldn't really put it back in. Once like Pandora's box was open, he had to try to control it in some way. So why would the white man give or the slave master give the black man? Well, he didn't give. So that means we have to rephrase the question, because we recognize how slave master really fought to the spilling of blood, killing people, cutting out their tongues. Those who did know. And some wanted to talk about it. They wanted to share it with others. Sometimes the slave master didn't want to lose his profit on this field nigga. And what he would do was cut out his tongue, or maim him in some other way to put the so-called fear of Antichrist, the fear of a false God, that blonde hair, blue eye, Jesus and everything, because the black man, once he started to read, he started to find things like Revelation, woolly hair in the book of Daniel, you know what I'm saying. So this is what inspired the Nat Turner, the case in point, because I'm getting close to the Medrash on this right here, but a case in point is the Nat Turner. A case in point was Nat Turner, and Nat Turner was seen by the European to be an anomaly. Or at least that's the way he tried to spin it in the media. But he recognized what Willie Lynch papers. Now, there's a dispute of whether the Willie Lynch papers, some people say it's fake, it's not true. I say that what the contents speak of actually speaks to the real condition. So now whether there was a Willie Lynch who actually on the banks of the James River in, what was it, 1712, actually said these words, and we're not going to even go there. But it's like the protocols. We put that in the class of the protocols of learned elders design. Many people say it's not true. It is anti-Semitic, but the Ashkenaz is from the tribe, is of the seed of Japheth. He's not a Shemite. So how can that be anti-Semitic? But anyway, that's a whole other point right there. But the Nat Turner revolt, the Nat Turner rebellion, because he read in the Bible that if a slave be found in the hand of one who kidnapped him and stole him and plagiarized him, that's what plagiarization means, kidnap, we will plagiarize, right? And the Bible was plagiarized from our ancestry, from our Ethiopian, Hebrew, and Israelite roots and culture. I mean, that was taken from us. So the white man fought hard to keep the Bible out of the hands of the black man, because he might not have fully understood the prophecy of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, but he heard all of those enslaved Hebrews who he was stripping of their names, calling them niggers and Negroes, and every name but a child of God, every name but a B'nai Ha-Elohim. You see what I'm saying? So he did not want the black man to get the Bible. He even put things in law. Even he was willing to hurt and kill and intimidate other so-called white, pale men like himself to prevent them from teaching these black people the Bible. It was that when he was able to bring in his own hired shepherds, his own black nigger preachers who would not preach the real parts of the Bible, who would just preach certain selected verses from the Bible, and who would have the image that causes jealousy, in the tabernacle, in the church, that blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caesar Borgias. See, it was only when that happened that we see what we see today. So a lot of people, a lot of the RBG, Afrocentrics, and Kemetans, they are coming from a post-traumatic slave disorder mentality when they want to step to we who are Hebrew and Israelitish, Ethiopian Hebrews and black Hebrews. Because we know how this began. So the so-called white man did not want the black man to read the Bible. And that's fact, that's documented, that's evidence, we can substantiate, that's already substantiated. Many people have written on that, how the white man tried hard, right? And his only scheme was to have his own counterfeit, nigger preachers and everything, who would preach exactly the selected sermons that the white man, the so-called slave master, wanted them to preach. Because when black men were able to look at the Bible from his own free black mind, we had the likes of Nat Turner, and there's so many other cases and examples. All right, so that's my first response to that, but I like others to think on that for themselves as well. You could be for or against this point, but try to present your own vid, or present your own POV on this particular. You can do a blog on it. Link us at RasTafariGroundation.com for more. That's RasTafariGroundation.com for more. So thank you for listening. Subscribe to this channel. Feel free to download, re-upload, tweet, get the message out. Be I and I co-laborers in the King of Kings and His Christ. I and I, Black Lord and Savior, Yeshua HaMoshiach. Shalom, Rastafari.